How to live in the end while being present to the now. In the concept Living in the End from Neville Goddard, we realize that the state of mind that we're in determines our ability to understand and utilize, and I speak a lot from the entrepreneurial space, the opportunities, the resources, and what is in front of us as contributing to what we desire to create. And knowing the difference, wisdom. Wisdom is knowing the difference. There are times where we apply and do, and there are times where we take a step back and allow it to be. Both of these elements are based on being as an individual, as in the end result. Now, the end result is clear in our imagination. And as we continue to honor and live in the end result, we behave as if we are in the moment in the end result, and our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors flow to create the end result. As well as we notice that outer world circumstances, people, environment, and information evolves on its own to reflect the end result. This is what we call living in the end and being present to the now. When I came across this concept, it was really something that further dimensionalized my understanding of what I had learned from Think and Grow Rich in 2004. Upon creating success in different areas of my life, I understood that the concept that Neville presented was in a way that shifted my consciousness around to a degree of understanding that allowed me to be more of the end result and thus create success in a way that is a lot more in alignment with joy, bliss, and ease. So different stages of your journey, you uncover different information that helps you understand what you've already known and maybe learned before so that you could feel more in a state of being. We also call this being unconditionally loving or calm. When we live in the end, we know we have faith in the outcome, and we navigate reality from the perspective of being in alignment with the end result. To further dimensionalize this, I'm discussing it from three perspectives: being clear on your intent, evolving the meaning of what shows up, and also reflecting on the journey to reaffirm the being. The key word here is being, as in you are the end. Now, in earlier stages of the journey, we might have a harder time being the end result because five sensory data and past beliefs and assumptions of how we believe reality to work appears contrarian to the end. And this is why what we can do on this journey is evolve the meaning or evolve our beliefs so we can be more in the end result and thus create a bridge of incidence that is a lot more in harmony and in alignment, in one which we experience peace and a higher degree of bliss. So be clear in your intent. Neville says, "Let me imagine that I am seeing them in my mind's eye. How did they see me? For what I am assuming is true, they should see me as I am seeing myself. And if they are friends, they should rejoice with me. So let me now assume that I am seeing reflected on the face of a friend that which, if I saw it, would imply he sees in me that which I have assumed that I am. Will that work? Try it, I tell you. From my own personal experience, it works." Neville Goddard. And I vouch for this statement, and that's why I really went deep into discussion a few videos ago on the concept of everyone is you pushed out. To the degree that I am self-persuaded on my journey, and to the degree that I was self-persuaded of the end on my journey, it was reflected and revealed in the conversations and my experiences with others. All people represent a mood within us. And one of my favorite journeys is the entrepreneurial journey, and I work a lot with clients and their teams integrating these principles into their day-to-day business. And as a result, they realize that all change happens within them. And as they change their perspective of how they believe reality works, from a perspective of cause, as in they are the creators, they notice that the people in front of them, from prospects, clients, team members, and everyone they deal with in their business day-to-day life, through accurate cause and effect reflection, reveal the assumptions, the beliefs, and the moods within them. Now, this gives us enormous amount of power, because something that can happen on the journey for creating success is we bring forth certain beliefs that add more friction on the journey. In other words, break our flow, or we're not as peaceful or not as faithful. And one of my favorite sayings is that knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. So we take this knowledge and we apply it and we acquire experience. And from this experience, we understand, we know the difference. They say wisdom is knowing the difference. The experience is really observing what shows up on the journey and evolving our beliefs about what shows up on the journey to higher degrees of empowerment and to a level of what we call unconditional love. And the unconditional love is living in the end, because giving and receiving is one, and it is experienced to higher degrees in the being. Now, when I put this part in here that says present to the now, I was very much inspired by Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now. And that when a person gets to a high degree of presence, everything works out in their favor because they know the difference between taking action and inaction. Both are important. Here's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita to emphasize this. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. Wisdom is knowing the difference. When do you do something and when do you not do something? Now, when we reflect on our journey, we notice that when we've taken action, a lot of times we've produced results. And we also notice that there's been times where we did not do anything and yet the results happen. So being in a living in the end state of mind, which is living from the end, is knowing the difference, because really the action or inaction is a manifestation of the being. So wisdom is knowing the difference. So we're not thinking about it, we know when. Now, this might be challenging on earlier stages of the journey because what we're really doing is releasing ourselves from beliefs that prevent us from experiencing this being that knows the difference, when to take action and when not to take action. Which brings me to my next point, evolving the meaning of what shows up. We have something called 5 sensory data, this outer world, people, environment, circumstance, and information. And our interpretation of this 5 sensory data reveals to us about our self-image. So that's what I'm talking about when we say what shows up, as in what is the meaning that we are associating to the different elements on the bridge of incidents, to the realization of the end result. And to what degree are we living in the end? Now, if we're not to a high degree living in the end, that's okay. It's not necessarily required, but one of our goals is to bring ourselves to higher and higher degrees of evolution of being with the end result. So thus, in future end results or desired outcomes, you have more calm faith and assurance that it will be so, and thus, you will have a greater degree of understanding of this Bhagavad Gita quote, which I'll say it again. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. That's a state of being, one that is facilitated to higher degrees on the journey. In other words, it's not just about the end result, but who you become on the journey, seeing the journey and the destination as one. That's what we talk about when we're referring to living in the end. So here's the premise. Be as if it is possible. Be as if it is possible. Beliefs help us facilitate the being. If you do not live in the end, it's because there's beliefs that deny the living in the end. What we do is we experience day to day what shows up and identify our beliefs and evolve our beliefs. But we always have to remember one of the pinnacle beliefs. All things are possible. When you believe that all things are possible, then what will happen is you will tap into what we call infinite intelligence, which is a combination of working with what you know and what you have acquired, your own experience, as well as factors that you might not be able to consciously explain, and leverage them in a way that's right for you to create the end result. This is then, when you reverse engineer and look back, you'll see the pathway, as Steve Jobs once said in his commencement speech, connecting the dots looking backwards. Connecting the dots a lot of times happens looking backwards. So when we create an end result, we might say, this is how we created success. And maybe others might come up to you and say, how did you create success? Well, the truth is, it's the being that created the success. It's the degree that we were living in the end that created the success. And the way we explain it a lot of times is, here's how we did it. Here are the steps. And they may follow these steps, and it could work for them. But a lot of times we'll find that they have their own steps that they can reveal through their own being that will create success in a way that's unique to them and will be a lot more joyous and in harmony with their higher self, as we put it, and feel right to them. And that's what they are really looking for on this journey, is to do it their way. So in order to facilitate this in others, we communicate and we live in possibility. So when I say be as if it is possible, I'm saying living in possibility. Now, the only thing that can deny us from living in possibility and tapping into the infinite intelligence is if we identify with the word impossible. So what I've done then is uncovered a number of beliefs that I want to share with you that I have evolved and integrated into my being that allows me to tap into higher degrees of possibility. I'm able to generate creative insights and perspectives and find solutions to problems in entrepreneurship or different areas that I'm involved with in the most unique ways. And whatever these solutions are elements and ideas that may never have been actually externalized or experienced by others. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I receive them from my inner voice conversation in the world within as a result of believing, having the core belief that all things are possible. So thus, being present to the now means evolving our belief to a higher degree of possibility. If we have a higher degree of possibility as far as our core belief, it's easier to live in the end, because then we're not confused or encouraging doubts or fears, because we know that the possibility or the infinite intelligence will take care of it for us. It will show up. And as a result of that, we'll know when to act, how to act to higher degrees, and when not to act, and let it take care of itself. So let's look at these beliefs and discuss them. The deliberate act of finding more joy on your journey with your time, energy, resources encourages possibility. So the idea is to see the journey and the destination as one, which is to live in the end. And one of the best ways that I have found to do it is to have more joy, and you could say gratitude, to whatever you have right now, this moment, realizing that everything is contributing to the end result. And as a result of having this joy on the journey, you value the resources, the opportunities, the insights, the information that is presented to you, and the people. And what you'll notice is that, let's take the interactions with people. When you find more joy in your interactions with each person you are interacting with, you will have a greater degree of understanding of how that joy is reciprocated through the joyful conversations that you have with the other person. All people represent a mood within you. You'll also find that there will be a higher degree of information transfer. They will say a lot more insightful things. Perhaps they were always saying it, except now you're more open to it, more receptive to it, because you value the now. This is based on the being of possibility. If you believe in the possibility, then you know that there's infinite possibility right now in this moment. And so you're open and receptive to it. Thus, you have a higher degree of calm, faith, and peace within. Remember that your natural state is learning. So remove disempowering beliefs surrounding learning. Now, I'll speak from experience this on my journey in the earlier stages of my life. I did not like learning. And that's because I associated learning with shame. I had experiences where when I would learn something and I didn't quite get it right, I felt ashamed when someone said, "You're not good enough because you didn't get it right." Now, I speak about this a lot, about going into your past and forgiving your past and all others in your past. And one of the reasons why we do this is so that we realize that perhaps some of the meaning that we had in our past surrounding certain important areas of our life were based on beliefs that we'd assimilated, not consciously, but rather subconsciously through certain experiences. As a result of releasing those beliefs that I had, the disempowering beliefs surrounding learning, I became what we call an insatiable learner. I enjoy learning. Now, what really happened was I found my way of learning. And I also realized that I have a lot of joy in learning. Thus, on the journey, or in this moment, towards the end, we are always learning and growing. When we value everything that is in front of us as learning experience, we live in the end more because we see everything as unfolding and contributing. When we see it from this perspective, we have a higher degree of possibility. When we have a higher degree of possibility and see it from this perspective, then we understand the Bhagavad Gita quote even more. Again, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. As in, you have confidence and you know when to apply and when to reflect and when to let be. This also gets into the concept of letting go by David Hawkins, which I recommend everyone study that book, because much of the frustration on the journey to create what we desire is by holding on to past, which is governed by beliefs. When you are in the possible state of mind, you are occupied by what inspires you and uplifts you, because you find meaning that you have never found before in just about anything that you do each day. You're able to see the signs and synchronicities to a higher degree, and you'll be able to see how more so that everything has been contributing to the end result. That again brings you into a state of calm and peace and in alignment with the end. Observe if your thought process is what can be done rather than can't be done. So this is an important litmus test to reveal to you if you are living in the end. Living in the end implies that it will happen. All of creation is complete and you are moving down a bridge of incidents to realize it. If you experience can't be done in part or in whole, this can lead to frustration, stress, doubts. Now, if you experience any of these elements, it's important to understand where this meaning came from and release this programming, and understand that this is probably programming from your past that has been assimilated in your subconscious mind, and it's just revealing itself, and you have the power to release it. When you release the disempowering programming that says that there is an impossibility in the part or in whole leading to the success, you will start to notice that you will feel a lot more inspired and excited and uplifted and in alignment of what can be done. And as mentioned, what can be done sometimes is not necessarily taking action, but allowing it to resolve itself. Wisdom is knowing the difference, and it is found through a state of mind called being the end, living in the end. Ideas and creative thinking is facilitated when discouragement is released. So if you feel discouraged on your journey to creating the end result, ask yourself, why do you feel discouraged? What are your beliefs surrounding whatever you believe is holding you back? What is the root cause of this discouragement? When you identify these beliefs and release them, you will start to notice that ideas and creative thinking will start to flow. You'll find yourself in higher degrees of flow. Now, as mentioned, there's only really 4 subconscious mind methodologies that I use. I use self-talk, subconscious mind audios, revision, and environment being how this programming got there in the first place, to evolve my beliefs into alignment, into the realm of possibility of being, which is living in the end. And I did a discussion on these 4 elements. I'll put a link in the description. I recommend you watch it and integrate it. Break things down in a way that releases overwhelm, knowing that it's okay to let go, to allow the answer to be received from within. Now, this is extremely powerful if you are an entrepreneur, because there's all these different projects and things you got to do that you've identified that are going to contribute to the end result. And you know you have to do them. Now, when we look at the whole scope of activities we got to do, it might seem very overwhelming. So what we do is we say, we don't have to complete all of this right now. If we feel we have to do this right now, we'll start to feel overwhelmed, and we're not living in the end. So can we take what we have, the scope of what we have, and break it down into small tasks, and maybe focus on each task 25 minutes at a time, getting back into flow again, knowing that these are acts of faith, because you know you have to do it. These are acts of faith, and as a result, you live in the end. Living in the end is feeling confidence and faith. This is the ultimate litmus test. As Neville puts it, how would you be as if it is so? If you believe that these actions, these thoughts, these emotions are as if it is so, then you would be that way. You would live that way. And when you are that way and being that way, you'll feel a greater degree of alignment with the end result. And then you're on your way to creating the end result from that state of being, which is joy, bliss, ease, and flow. Now, this may seem easy when I'm saying it, and I recognize it's been a long journey for me and many others that I've worked with. And I continue to get better at it, and that's why I like to share this content with you, to contribute. Sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes it's easier, and that's okay. Release from this idea that you have to do everything perfect. By releasing from the idea that you have to do everything perfect, you'll find yourself more living in the end, in the state of mind that externalizes as the end result. Because all of this is states of mind. We're just moving into different states of mind. And we want to maintain the state of mind that is in alignment with living in the end, which is the thoughts, emotions, and interpretation of 5 sensory data from the perspective of the end as contributing. If things don't go your way, perhaps it is time to evolve what you believe is your way. All beliefs are ever realizing. There might be something that you hold true as a belief right now. You believe it to be so, fully. And you might find that one day that belief is limiting. It's okay to let go of that. A lot of times we feel we have to hold on to our beliefs. The pinnacle belief is all things are possible. If we believe all things are possible, then it's possible to not only evolve past beliefs, but identify higher levels of beliefs, knowing that beliefs create our reality, that we can affirm on our self-image, in other words, become more in alignment with our higher self, and that becomes a better way. Always remember that there are infinite ways of creating success, and you'll find a way that works well for you, that is right for you. Now, we see this a lot in the entrepreneurial space. When somebody creates success, we reverse engineer them, and we do what they're doing. Now, they may work, that may get us started, but it's also important to remember that there's infinite ways of creating success, the entrepreneurial success, and you'll find ways that are right for you, and perhaps you will be inspired by others, and maybe even utilize some of the ways that they're doing, but allow yourself to also find your own way. Build a higher level of connection with the end result and your own individualized being with the end result by opening up to a higher realm of possibility. When we have a higher degree of potentiality and possibility in our being, we're a lot more able to relax ourselves into the end. Rather than forcing ourselves to live in the end, we allow ourselves to live in the end. Doubts that show up on the journey reveal clues of beliefs that you have once internalized that stifle possibility. So if you have doubts, that's okay. Understand where these doubts come from. What are the beliefs that you have about whatever is showing up for you, which causes you to doubt? And realize that it's probably something that is stifling the core belief of all things are possible, and evolve that belief. Reflect back on your past to remember how support or contribution showed up from the most unexpected sources. See, one of the things that a lot of us, when we're creating success, especially entrepreneurial success, is we feel we have to do everything on our own. And one of the things that we want to allow to happen is the support, insights, and perspectives to flow from us, and realize that they've a lot of times showed up in the most unexpected ways. People, environments, information, circumstance reveals itself in the most unexpected ways sometimes to contribute. So what we want to do is reflect back on our past experiences where this has happened to facilitate more of it, because anything that we affirm from our past, we impress on the subconscious mind further to recreate it again and continue to allow it to happen again. Remember that there is no one to change but yourself to prevent yourself from creating further disempowering programming in the world of Caesar. Okay, Neville refers to 5 sensory data that causes us to be very reactive as world of Caesar. Now, this reactivity is past programming that has been assimilated in our subconscious mind, and we have the power to release it. And what are we really doing? We're releasing it within. And as a result of releasing it within, then, again, the statement from the Bhagavad Gita makes even more sense. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. So then you'll know what to do or not to do to produce the end result, or move forward past what was considered to be an obstacle, but rather it is an opportunity to reveal about yourself and build a greater degree of connection with your higher self by evolving your belief and watching it externalize accordingly. Ensure that on your journey, and to the best of your ability, you consciously choose to be in environments that encourage possibilities of your end result and your ability to bring forth your end result. So going back to the 4 methods that I use, one is environment. By placing yourself around certain people or in certain environments where you feel encouraged and stimulated into higher degrees of possibility, you are affirming that on your subconscious mind and going to be recreating it again and again. Most of our programming came from environment, which is experiences with people, circumstance, information, all the environmental elements that created a current self-image. And part of this journey is evolving that self-image to our higher self. And our higher self is one of higher degrees of possibility. So we can facilitate that by choosing environments that encourage that. Again, what are we really doing? We are impressing on our subconscious mind a higher degree of possibility and being in alignment with the end. Evolve your beliefs to higher levels of unconditional love and spirit of harmony. Now, this is very important because unconditional love is giving and receiving is one. It's not a form of, I will do this and I hope I get back, or I will do this and how come I'm not getting it back. It is, you are, and then you express. You're expressing without actually trying to express or consciously expressing, and then it happens in its own way. We want to evolve our beliefs to higher degrees. Again, realizing that this is a journey. So if you don't have high levels of beliefs, perhaps compared to someone else that's okay. They were on the journey themselves, and so are you. Be inspired by others on the journey and their successes to learn from them to create mastermind or invisible counsel. See, by connecting with others, if all people represent a mood within us, we want to find ourselves externalizing certain people that represent those moods within us, which is of possibility And as a result of externalizing them, they will open up through conversation higher degrees of possibility within you, and they will express their higher degrees of understanding of possibility, thus further facilitating the being, which is living in the end. Now, we also do this through what I call invisible counsel, which is what I learned from Think and Grow Rich, in which you can create invisible counsel meetings in your mind at the end of the night. This is the same as revision, in which you can have conversations with people that you admire, and all of this will impress the subconscious mind and create accordingly. Here's an important element. Release from shame. It does not have to be associated with your evolution. A lot of us had learned from the perspective of shame. We learned something, and I mentioned this earlier, and perhaps if we didn't do it a certain way, we were shamed for not doing it that way. Thus, we prevent ourselves from trying again because we're afraid to shame ourselves. Once we begin to release that shame and realize that it has nothing to do with evolution or learning, we begin to have a different experience on the bridge of incidents to creating what we desire, which is the end result. And what I've noticed is that in the entrepreneurial space, for me, I would do certain kinds of behaviors. I would procrastinate, and I would take naps, or I would be distracted. And then afterwards, I would shame myself. I would say, you're not good enough. You're not like this other person. Until I identified that the source of this programming was from the perspective of shame. And it manifested itself all throughout the journey. So there was different stages of the shame, and it showed up in different ways. And I continued to release it, eventually to get to a place where if I did any of those things, like, for example, took a break, it was just part of the journey. I was okay with it. I noticed then I wouldn't do certain kinds of behaviors like procrastinate or any kind of behaviors that I had interpreted were breaking my flow or not contributing. I didn't even give it the label of bad behavior. It was just the way it is. If I chose to take a break, I took a break. If I chose not to work at the end of the day, I did not. If I chose to work with one project versus another, I didn't feel any shame by saying I don't want to work on the other project and choose to work on the one that I do want to work on. And all of these things, pragmatically and practically speaking, contributed more to living in the end and brought forth higher degrees of success in the realm of entrepreneurship and other areas of my life, including relationships, easier, faster, and in flow more so than ever before. So thus shame stifles us and can cause us to see a contrast between five sensory data not revealing the end result, and then we beat ourselves up on the journey and create unnecessary convolution and confusion. That's a manifestation of shame. And finally, you don't always need to be told what to do. You can also allow yourself to be inspired to observe as to how your individualized insights and perspectives flow. Now, how does this relate to what we're talking about here? Because if we go back to what we were discussing, there are infinite ways of bringing forth your end result, the end. And what we want to feel on the journey is faith, unconditional love, and understanding that all things are contributing and bringing forth that end result and being that. And that is through the realm of what we call possibility. And one of the biases that we have is that we need to get more advice, learn more, seek counsel, when in actuality what I found is that those elements are very important, as well as your ability to tap into your own understanding and unique way of doing things. Now, when we do these things, and there's many different kinds of beliefs that I've identified, this is just maybe like 10 or 15 that have been really valuable for me that I have integrated into my being so that I could live in the end while being present to the now, as in enjoying these moments, because I value the journey and the destination. As I integrated these elements, what I noticed is that I'm able to create success from a lot more of a higher degree of flow, joy, bliss, and ease, rather than force and frustration. So 2 ways of creating success, one through force and frustration, or the other through flow. Flow is where you rise up to the challenge, and the challenge is really looking at the programming within and evolving past it, which, depending on where we are on the journey, might seem really hard. But as we realize that we can change our beliefs and we can evolve past them, it gets easier. Now, number 3 is after you create success, it's important to also affirm the success and affirm the journey so that when you go and create another desired outcome, you live from this perspective and value this perspective from a place of seeing it as one. When you see it as one, again, valuing the journey and the destination, you live in the end while being present to the now. So in order to do this, here's some important elements. First, celebrate your creations and successes to affirm the reality. If you get to the destination and then you say, okay, I want to start something else, you don't really take the time to affirm that you had evolved on the journey and that you created success, then you might not find a lot of joy and meaning in the journey. You might be just chasing the next shiny object. So it's important to do that. And number 2, power is found in humility. And when you create success, especially when you rise up to higher degrees and you start to achieve things that maybe others have not been able to achieve, it's important to have a high degree of humility because it builds a solid foundation for your next level. Because all of this was a process and a journey. And it'll always be this way as you rise up to higher degrees of what you aspire to be. And Neville says, it is inevitable that you are going to resurrect it and objectify it on the screen of space. Okay, it's a process. And then the world will call it real. And they may not believe you. It doesn't really matter. If you tell them that it came to pass because you simply imagined it, no, they will point to a series of events that led up to it, and they will give credit to the bridge of incidents, across which you walked toward the fulfillment of the state. And they will point out some physical thing that was the cause. It's a very important element here. He says, walk towards the fulfillment. He didn't say force towards the fulfillment or stress towards the fulfillment. He said walked toward the fulfillment. Now, what facilitates the walking is the being, and then realizing that the next step reveals itself, and you're open to this step, which we call possibility. And then also raise your standards by repeating the process for greater levels of success, bliss, and self-realization. This journey is about creating what you desire, living in the end, and bringing forth your end, and it's part of a bigger plan, self-realization, moving into higher degrees of understanding of who you really are. So, thus, our natural desire is learning, as mentioned earlier, and thus can also be interpreted as our natural desire is evolution, to evolve ourselves and primarily evolve our concept of ourselves, self-realization. So, as we create success, we repeat this process, we evolve, and we continue this journey. Otherwise, it might feel like we're moving backwards or losing our purpose. And then as a result, we realize that the greatest joy was when we set a goal or had a desired outcome and enjoyed the journey and found the journey as rewarding as the destination, because most of it can be on the journey. And the ways of really valuing the journey is more than just me telling you, value the journey. It's about evolving beliefs so that you do value the journey. And I trust these elements that I reveal to you can help contribute to evolving your journey to the end result of what you desire to create, which really is then living in the end, which is then valuing and being present to the now as your beliefs facilitate and contribute to the living in the end and present to the now as one. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.